A very good evening and a warm welcome to the NDLI Club's 25th Global Event. I'm Dr. Vignesh and I'm part of the National Digital Library of India's team. As many of you are aware, the National Digital Library hosts over 8.6 crore knowledge resources in partnership with over 499 content contributors from across the globe. And today we have over 3,800 NDLI clubs that are operational across the country with the primary objective of promoting the culture of reading, especially among the young generation. And as part of this NDLI club, we have been organizing a series of global events. And for today's global event, we have collaborated with Wheels Global Foundation, an impact organization registered in the United States of America by the Pan IIT community. And this is the second global event that we are organizing in collaboration with Wheels. And it is represented by Mr. Indrajit Chatterjee, who is the board member of Wheels Global Foundation. And we are very pleased to have you, sir. And today's topic, and we are very pleased to have a former Indian Foreign Service officer and a luminary diplomat of the country, Ambassador Pradeep Kumar Kapur. And he is going to talk to us from his experience as an Indian Foreign Services officer in building international relations. Now, I would like to invite my colleague, Ms. Sujata Rai, to formally welcome our resource person. Over to Sujata ji.
Thank you, Dr. Vignesh. It's a great pleasure to have Ambassador Pradeep Kapur with us today to interact with us all. I feel privileged to welcome him, and as Vignesh said, a luminary diplomat with a distinguished career who worked closely with Indian prime ministers like Atal Bihari Vajpayee, Narasimha Rao, I.K. Gujral, other heads of governments, heads of states, global leaders, and policymakers in different continents of the world. I would also like to welcome Mr. Indrajit Chatterjee, an alumnus of IIT Kharagpur and MIT Sloan, co-chair of IIT Future Tech Social Impact Working Group, a board member of Wheels Global Foundation India and Sobus Insight Forum to the panel. Welcome, Mr. Chatterjee.
Thank you.
As about our main speaker, Ambassador Pradeep Kapur, he received the 2020 IAPC Excellence in Literature Award and the 2020 Raymond Aron Group's Health for All Award for his book entitled Beyond the COVID-19 Pandemic, Envisioning a Better World by Transforming the Future of Healthcare. It had Dr. Joseph Chalil as a co-author and was on the Amazon bestseller list. His other publications include Connecting World Heritage Sites and Civilizations, India-ASEAN Relations, and several others. Ambassador Kapur is currently working as International Strategic Advisor to Intellect Design Arena Inc. to support countries to develop their national digital fintech infrastructure. He is the Executive Director of Smart Village Development Initiative of Wheels Global Foundation, which has joined hands with NDLI today in hosting the talk that we're listening to today. He also holds the position of Director, Chairman, Advisor, etc. on several boards and councils. With Ambassador Kapur's focus on strategizing India's relations with other countries through mutually beneficial initiatives, he has helped to create several pioneering institutions and bilateral and multilateral projects in countries like Cambodia, Nepal, Chile, and of course, India. The South Asian University in New Delhi is one such example, and there are many others. As an educator, he has taught at some of the most prestigious universities, including Sorbonne University, Paris, ENPC Paris, IIT Roorkee, University of Maryland, College Park, and a visiting scholar at the George Washington University. He is currently a visiting professor at NDI and is invited regularly as a keynote speaker at conferences and webinars and as a commentator on national TV channels. An IIT Delhi alumnus, Ambassador Kapur was the first Indian diplomat to be conferred the Third World Diplomat Award and worked as diplomatic faculty at Georgetown University under a UN fellowship. He was also the first Indian diplomat to be invited to the Emerging Global Leaders Georgetown Leadership Seminar in 1992. Given his wide experience in international relations, Ambassador Kapur is going to share with us today his thoughts on the role of Indian Foreign Service in international relations. And I'm sure all of you, especially those who may be aspiring for a diplomatic career, can pick up a lot of lessons from him. On behalf of the National Digital Library of India, IIT Kharagpur, and the entire NDLI Club's fraternity, I welcome Ambassador Pradeep Kapur to the session today, and I look forward to hearing from him. Over to you, Ambassador Kapur.
Thank you so much, Sujata ji, for setting this up along with Dr. Vignesh ji. And congratulations to the NDLI organization and to the NDLI clubs for doing such outstanding pioneering work in the country to empower our youth, which is a very, very important aspect of existence of any country. It is indeed a very great pleasure for me to address this gathering today of thousands of our youth and others across different countries on this very important subject of the role of the Indian Foreign Service in international relations. Uh, Having been a practitioner in this field for about 3.5, 4 decades, I can, address this subject and answer your questions when we come to the question and answer session. So let me start by saying that the Indian Foreign Service is part of the civil service structure of the Indian bureaucracy. The exams, as most of you may know, the admission exams for the Indian Foreign Service are probably the most difficult exams for any job anywhere in the world. I don't want to discourage you. I want to encourage you to take up this challenge. There are a very large number of people who appear. There are maybe about 1 million who enroll for the prelims, over 1 million, I'm told. And it's a three-stage level structure for the exams. So all the officers from the civil for the civil services of India, whether it is the IAS or the Indian Foreign Service or the Indian Police Service or any of the other Indian services, are all uh, you know recruited through the UPSC for the exams which are held once every year. And it's a big cycle, of course, of preparation. And the point is that why you should aspire to join the foreign service. That is the main point. And then you can tackle with the how you can join the foreign service. Now, the foreign service of India is known as a heaven born service. You all have heard of born with a silver spoon in the mouth. Here we are talking about a service which is called a heaven born service because it gives you a possibility to serve your country in a very profound manner. If you have the aspirations to work for your country on a global scale and on a global platform, there is nothing better than the Indian Foreign Service. Also, you get a lot of experience of dealing with very senior people all over the world because you are dealing absolutely in direct contact in the same room, across the same table with prime ministers and presidents, including some which Sujata mentioned, like Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, with whom I had the good fortune to work very closely during the period that he was prime minister, and particularly when he came to Cambodia on his two visits when I was the ambassador of India in Cambodia. Similarly, I have had interactions, very close interactions, with Prime Minister Gujral and with Prime Minister Narasimha Rao during my period in the Foreign Service. But besides that, you also get, it is basically a very great blessing and a gift to be able to serve your country through the platform of the Indian Foreign Service. Because in Nepal, for example, when I was a minister there, I was again working for our bilateral relations, because the primary job that you do as an Indian Foreign Service officer is to build good relations with other countries so that you are able to deepen and enhance the friendship with those countries so that they become your partners. They become your partners bilaterally, that is one on one. They become your partners in the regional domain. That is, for example, if it is Nepal in the South Asia sphere, if it is Cambodia, it is in the Southeast Asia sphere, if it is Chile, it is in Latin America, South America, if it is France or Spain, it is for Europe, etc. So, Africa, for example, Tanzania. So, you have this opportunity to work closely with the leadership to influence the relations with that country, which then impact that country's outlook, that country's votes in the United Nations for your country, that country's support for your country's support for that country. So it's a very exciting career. It's a very challenging career, of course. And when we come later to the question answers, of course, I'll be answering your questions on what are the different aspects that one has to deal with. But here I'll talk about some of my own personal experiences in some of the countries that I've worked in. So, in Nepal, for example, if I start with Nepal, we were tasked, I was the Minister for Economic Cooperation and Assistance. So, we were trying to make a hospital system there, which is called the BP Koirala Institute of Health Sciences. So, if you go to the internet and do a search, you will find that it is seen as a role model for bilateral cooperation between India and Nepal. The World Health Organization made many visits to the hospital there, and they were also very, very happy with the outcomes. It was a very difficult venture because any bilateral venture is not easy. There are too many moving parts, there are too many variables, there are too many parameters, there are too many vested interests. Here, our dream was to create an institution in eastern Nepal which would look after the healthcare needs of almost half of Nepal. Can you imagine? A country the size of Nepal, and the eastern half of Nepal would be catered to by this hospital and its outreach capacities. Also, as everybody knows, earlier a very large number of Nepalese used to come across, and in many cases, they would flood the already the overburdened Indian hospital systems in the border areas of Bihar, UP, and West Bengal. So, our aim was to create some medical systems in Nepal whereby that aspect is also looked after, in the sense that people do not have to come in very large numbers into the Indian hospitals this side of the border. And also, the leadership of Nepal has been coming regularly to the Indian hospitals, and that still continues. But to some extent, that is also now looked after by some of these hospitals which have been set up with India Nepal cooperation. So it has been a very successful model, because we had at one time 150 doctors from All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Delhi, UCMS, Delhi, University College of Medical Sciences, PGI, Chandigarh, Chipmer, Pondicherry, all top institutes, medical institutes of India, all the top doctors in all the different fields. So you can imagine 150 doctors from India working with their counterparts from Nepal and the difficulties that creates in terms of salary structures, office spaces, and seniority, merit, etc., etc. So there were so many aspects to deal with, and setting up a institute from scratch and getting equipment which is state of the art equipment from all over the world, and then delivering the final product which is, for example, more than the requirement of the specifications in terms of the equipment which was given, in terms of the built up area of the hospital, which is 10% more than what was envisaged and paid for, and to deliver it at a cost which is 10% less than the original cost, and to also deliver it ahead of time. So those were challenges which we successfully managed. Similarly, in Cambodia, one of the biggest problems when I joined as ambassador was, Indian uh, relations with Cambodia stretch back to thousands of years. These are civilizational relations like we have with South Asia, Southeast Asia, and so many other countries in Central Asia and elsewhere. But with Cambodia, it was very, very close civilizational relations because the country birth foundation was impacted very significantly by two Indian princes who traveled there. That's another long story. So when I reached there, I go to Angkor Wat, which is the biggest, spiritual, religious, cultural monuments of the world in Siem Reap in Cambodia. And there are 38 countries working in that area, and India is not allowed to work. And then I start trying to find out why India is being kept away after having such close relations, not only close relations, but the all those temples were built by your ancestors. And a large number of rishis, munis, teachers, scholars, professors, architects, archaeologists, artists, they all traveled to Cambodia to build those monuments. And now a phase has come in 2001 when I'm there, when those very monuments are being restored by 38 countries, 38 agencies, and India is not allowed to participate in that work. So I'm faced with that challenge. And I go there and see that, how do we deal with this and what is the reason for this? So I start analyzing and understanding the origins of this challenge. I have had some idea from our files in the Ministry of External Affairs, from my earlier work as Director South, which looks after Southeast Asia, and from my work in France, whereas counselor for press, information, and culture in the Embassy of India in France. So, lots of incremental knowledge has been obtained because of those postings and the work in those countries. But still, the absolute final reasons and the causes for this very vehement opposition to India entering the restoration arena in Cambodia, I tried to dig deeper and deeper. And when I asked the Cambodian Prime Minister and the Cambodian King during my meetings with them that India would like to participate in this huge international effort, which is like a laboratory for restoration work, which is still going on, by the way, and India is incidentally the biggest player in the entire scene now after we were able to change the dynamics. So the Cambodian leadership informs me that India has not given any documentation about the work it did in Cambodia earlier. Now, just the historical context. When Pol Pot massacred, almost 30% of the Cambodian population, one third, genocide, that was the most and shocking genocide that has happened to a country. And after that, the some of his rebels from his Khmer Rouge forces, they came back to Cambodia and they deposed him from power. And they were supported by Vietnam primarily, also by Russia and other countries. And then they requested India for help for restoration of the Angkor Wat monument, because that is the primary source of revenue. That was and that still is. All the monuments in the Angkor Wat area. So India decided to open its embassy. There were very few embassies in Cambodia at that time. And India took this bold step against the Western countries' diktats that we should not enter. India said, no, we will enter and we will open our embassy. It's a poor country with a civilizational relation with India. So after we opened our embassy, then they kept on requesting us for intervention in Angkor Wat to restore those temples, which had become ruins because they had been, deserted after a big war. They were taken over by the forest. The trees were growing over all those monuments. So it was very difficult to enter those monuments also, even to access the monuments, temples. So when Cambodia made this request, there was a very big civil war going on in Cambodia between the Pol Pot and the government. And there were a lot of difficulties, which is a very lengthy chapter by itself, which we should have another chapter with NDLI on this aspect. But India decided to go ahead, and 7 years, our brave scholars, archaeologists, architects, they went ahead again after thousands of years to work on the restoration of these very beautiful temples within the Angkor Wat complex. Now, while they did all that great work, the mistake we made was not share the documentation with the Cambodian authorities. So Cambodian authorities felt powerless to support our involvement in the Angkor Wat restoration because they said we don't have any documentation. I don't want to make it very complicated, but just to give a simple overview. So then we had to indulge in creating that documentation, which again took a lot of effort and support of the Prime Minister's office. 2 volumes were created, which were the best publications by the Archaeological Survey of India in their history of 150 years. These publications were handed over to the Cambodian government. And finally, after a lot of diplomacy and negotiations and discussions and interactions and meetings, India was finally invited to work on restoration of the Tapra monument, which is a very, very big monument, one of the biggest monuments in the world. And this restoration project is the biggest restoration and renovation project by any country in any other country in the history of the world. So from not being allowed to enter Cambodia, India is now the biggest player, biggest entity, biggest restoration agency doing the maximum amount of work in Cambodia for restoring one of the most difficult and most challenging temple monuments. So that is diplomacy also. These are the sort of things that you can achieve. There's a very long list, but I will not go into that. I will get back to Indian Foreign Service in international relations. If you see the United Nations, there are about 200 country member states, and India is a very important member state of that country. Our numbers of diplomats is very, very small. Let me put it very clearly. We have about 700 diplomats today. The numbers in other countries are very huge in comparison. USA has 14,000 diplomats. of which 9,000 are posted all over the world, 5,000 are posted in Washington, D.C. And then there are about 22,000 more diplomats from Department of Defense, Department of Energy, Department of Drug Enforcement Agency, Department of Homeland Security, etc. Russia has about 9,000 diplomats. China has about 6,000 diplomats. Many countries, which are medium sized countries, have about 2,000 to 3,000 diplomats. So, this is one very big lacuna which has to be addressed, because if India has to be an important, more important player, it is a very, very important player, but if it has to enhance its global footprint even more, we need definitely to increase the size, because the pressure on Indian diplomats is a lot, because we are doing, work, and we are told when we join the service that you have joined a job which is 24 by 7. It is not a 9 to 5 job. And that is absolutely a reality, because you can be posted in some country where the time zones are different, and you're woken up at 3 a.m. and 4 a.m. by the secretary from the Ministry of External Affairs in Delhi. And many times you have to wake up at 4 a.m. in Delhi. So it's a very interesting, very fun job, very satisfying job. Job satisfaction is very, very high, and there are very few foreign service officers who move on to other careers once they join. Most of them, 99% of them, continue with that compared to other civil services or other jobs. So it is that the satisfaction is that high, and internationally our footprint is very significant, in the sense that an Indian diplomat, the access which I have as an ambassador of India to the leadership in the country that I'm working in, not only to the leadership, but to closed door sessions with other ministers of the leadership. Like if the prime minister of that country is having a meeting with his close leadership, or if the president of that country, and for the Indian ambassador to be invited to those meetings, which is very, very unusual, where the leader is meeting with the cabinet members, and you are present there in that meeting. So you are asked questions, you are asked to sort of also contribute in terms of what is your thought on the problem that country is facing, how can that be dealt with, how can India help. Like in the elections in Cambodia, the help given by India in conduct of the elections and in making sure that the global body accepted the elections as free and fair was absolutely phenomenal. So you get the capacity to interact and work for your country in your country's interest, but not only for your country in your country's interest, but you also work for the country that you're working in that country's interest. And not only that, you're working in the mutual bilateral interest of both the countries. But as an Indian diplomat and Indian diplomacy, you are also carrying the proud badge of the Indian civilization of thousands of years. So everybody in the world generally views Indian diplomats as being very bona fide, as being very positive, unlike a lot of other countries where the reactions to those diplomats are very different and very mixed. For example, some other countries may want access to natural resources. Some other countries may be giving you aid because of their own selfish interests. Some other countries may not be that relevant or important. Now, India, in that respect, for example, if I'm an American diplomat, US diplomat posted in the Muslim countries, Islamic countries, then the threat of terrorism is very, very high. And it in so many countries, my work is constrained and limited in so many ways. What are those ways? For example, I cannot travel beyond a distance of a kilometer and a half from the embassy, for example. I cannot, have a car which has a diplomatic number plate. Diplomatic number plate, of course, gives lots of privileges of parking and access and so many other things. So I'm not allowed to have diplomatic number plate so that I'm not identified as an American diplomat. And I cannot go around meeting people freely and comfortably in public places because of the threat. So there is so much of monitoring, there's so much of security requirements that the very basis of the work of a diplomat, which is to make friends with the countries where he's working, becomes hamstrung, becomes constrained. Similarly, other countries which are, very greedy to grab your natural resources or to bribe you, like the BRI initiative is called the Bribery and Repression Initiative. So there are mixed reactions in the sense that people do not look upon those countries very positively or very favorably all the time and all the people. So to that extent, you can be very proud if you're an Indian diplomat. You have leverage, you have access, you have possibility to work in depth with the country that you're posted in. And for me, as a career, I had the good fortune and blessing, as I said, to have worked in all the continents of the world except Australia, in depth with a large number of leaders and also leaders who came to Delhi when I was posted in Delhi in my different capacities. I don't know how we are doing with time, but I'd like to check up with the coordinators about the time aspect. How should we move ahead? Should we move on to the question answers or should I go ahead with my
So
monologue?
you have 10 more minutes with you, sir. You can share more of your
Okay,
experiences.
thank you very much. So, since we have a large number of youth in this august body, what I would like to say is that the work of a diplomat, let us get into what is the work of a diplomat and what are the dimensions of the work of a diplomat. Now, you know, there is political work. Now, when I tell a lot of my students in the United States that there is political work, uh, they get a little confused. They're not very happy because they don't want to join politics. Now, this political work is very different from the political, dimension of life in a country like India, for example. Political work for a diplomat entails the political relations between the two countries, or India and the region, or India and other multitude of countries. So that is a very important aspect of work for any diplomat. So you are dealing with the political leadership of that country, with the ministers, with the secretaries, with the bureaucrats, with the systems in that country, with the other organizations which are working specifically on aspects like terrorism, etc. So you are interacting in depth with those countries and making good basis for enhancing the political relations. So after the political relations, then you have the economic relations, because as we all know, bread and butter is an important aspect of daily existence for the citizens of every country. So you are working with the aspect of economic relations in depth with that country, where you are like a marketing person for your country. You are selling your country, you're selling the plus points, you're selling the investment possibilities. You're talking to World Bank or International Monetary Fund for any projects, for support of those projects financially. You're also dealing with a lot of countries whom you're giving huge lines of credit running into hundreds of millions of dollars, executing big project impacting the economic existence of that country. So that is a lot of economic work. Then there is trade work, which is different from economic work. Trade and commerce is easier to understand for a lot of us. Imports, exports, consumer items, etc., other items, so many other range of goods and services. So that is the next aspect. Then, of course, there is, of course, the most important, one of the most important aspects these days is the strategic relations. How do you strategize your relations with that country through all these aspects, also through political relations, economic relations, trade relations, other relations? So, geostrategic relations with other countries is very, very important in the way that the world is progressing today. Strategic relations become very important. A subset of these are also the military relations, where military exchanges, military exercises, exchange of military equipment, etc., personnel, military advisors in those countries, attaches in the embassies. Cyber is another important aspect. Terrorism is a very important aspect. So there are large number of areas that you have to work very profoundly in. Here, I'll just also touch upon, and besides these aspects, you also have climate change, for example, which is extremely important. So you're also dealing with that. So all security aspects also, your security of your country on the borders, etc. Now, the next thing which I would like to discuss is about the after these relations, there are other important areas. For example, today, the Indian diaspora is a very important component of our diplomacy globally. Why is it so? Because if you see the contribution of the Indian diaspora on the global stage is enormous, is very significant. Now, in the US where I'm working, the US Congress, the Parliament of the US, passed a resolution, House Resolution 227 of 2005, which sort of praised the great work done by Indians, and the IIT alumni for contributing to the economy of USA, to job creation, to employment, etc. So diaspora is very important. Then there are other aspects: culture, education, consular, so many other aspects of work as a diplomat. So your life is, it's very enriching experience. It's a very rewarding experience to work as a diplomat. Also, I would like to talk about, the aspect of wheels here very briefly, since we are also discussing wheels. Wheels is acronym for water, healthcare, education, energy, livelihoods, and sustainability. So wheels is embarking upon movement for rural transformation. What we are trying to do, as Sujata ji mentioned, I'm also involved very closely with wheels. I'm from IIT Delhi. So in November 2022, November 11, 12, 13, all those who can come to Banaras from the NDLI clubs, we are having a conference which is Global Development Through Rural Transformation, which we want to make a movement, not just a conference. And this is going to be, held by Wheels in collaboration with Stanford University. Inside Stanford University, there's an Ideal Village Center which is partnering with us, with Banaras Hindu University, with Pan IIT USA, with Pan IIT India, and with a large number of other organizations and NGOs. We are setting this up. So it'll be a very rich and rewarding experience for those of you. Now, impacting rural development, impacting global development. Coming back to the issue, if I am working in some field, I can impact it to some extent as an NGO person, as a development person. But if I'm working in the Indian Foreign Service, the impact which I can have is at a almost at a national level. Like the first project which I told you about, if you remember, the BP Koirala Institute of Health Sciences, impacting the healthcare for half of Nepal. So those are the sort of interventions. There are large numbers. I will, not have the time to get into those specifically. but there are very large numbers. And there's also a lot of very interesting issues which happen during your tenure in every country. But those are other stories. I think I see then we are now running into the next stage of our program, which is question answer, which is much more interesting for me to interact with all the participants and discuss with them. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for the amazing and very detailed insights. And you spoke very specifically about two of your assignments. So I could see some couple of questions have already coming in. So I request the participants, if you have any questions, you can kindly put it in the comments box. So I have noted on a few questions from the audience. And the first question was like, how was your experience in working as the ambassador of Chile?
So, well, I mean, all these questions require a very long answer, elaborate. It'll take a long time. We don't have that sort of time in this. So I'll say it was very good. It was the furthest country in the world from India, the furthest capital in the world from India, and to work there and see our bilateral economic and trade relations grow very significantly with all the work that I did was very satisfying, very rewarding, because our trade was $1.2 billion bilateral trade when I joined. When I left, it was $3.3 billion. We had impacted very significantly in a lot of other spheres. We were the first country. Chile and all the other Latin American, Central American, and Caribbean countries had made a grouping which is called CELAC. Now, CELAC came into existence when I was ambassador there. So I requested my government to enter into a dialogue partnership with CELAC immediately, which we did. So we were the first country. Now, if there are 35 countries, 33 countries across the continent, to have an interaction on a common platform for a big sized country like India makes it a lot easier. So we succeeded in that also. So there were a lot of areas where we were the biggest donor. For example, Chile suffered the fifth biggest earthquake when I was there of 8.8 Richter, and it was shaking very badly. The whole, part of Chile is the longest country in the world, stretching from below the equator to above the Antarctica. And the earthquake impacted Chile in a big way. India decided to donate $5 million, which was the biggest amount by any country or any group of countries. So that impacted the re-emergence of Chile and overcoming and coping with the after effects of the earthquake, etc. So it was good to be able to bring in so many Indian delegations and to take Chilean delegations to India across so many hours of flight and jet lag and do so much substantial work so that our relations increased very well. It was, good to interact with the leadership in Chile and make friends with them. Some of the leaders are still in important jobs in the world. So, very interesting. Thank you.
Sure. Sure. So there is a question from Guru Amrit Khalsa. It seems that a lot of the job of an ambassador is to create relationship. However, ambassadors are only given a limited term in a particular country. Does that water down their effectiveness?
Well, thank you, Guru Amrit Khalsa, for that question. Uh, it is a limited term, but I think it is sufficient because when you join as a diplomat, a lot of the things are already set for you, ready for you to take off, to hit the ground running, as they say. So you are actually starting your work not from day one, but from day zero minus maybe even 30 or 100. Because even when I've not joined that country on the ground, I'm already looking at the files, the papers, discussing with my team in that embassy, the diplomats, what is the work. Like when I landed in Chile, I came from the airport into a very big reception for an Indian sports delegation, which was being held at my residence, the ambassador's residence. So I'm walking from the flight where I've just landed at the airport. In the plane, I've got dressed with my formal attire, and I don't have time to sleep or rest or overcome the jet lag. And I'm walking straight into a very big reception where a lot of dignitaries associated with sports are at my residence, and I am the host. And the reception has already started. And I reach the reception a few minutes after that and welcome them all. And we have the speeches and interactions. And 2 days later is the Republic Day in my residence. So that is the speed at which we operate. We do, when we present our credentials, that's another very fascinating phase for any diplomat. We have to present the letters of credence, which is signed by the President of India to the leader of that country, Prime Minister, President, or King, or whatever. And that itself is an occasion for the first big interaction, which happens within a matter of a few days or weeks, where you interact with the leadership and start discussing substantial issues. So, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years is a good time, and you have an opportunity to create a lot of impact in any country within that period. It gives you, because you have learned about that country before reaching there, you have learned a lot more about that country by interacting with the scholars, with the universities, with the other people who are working there, who are living there, the other Indians. So your learning curve is very, very rapid, and your delivery curve is also very, very high. So that's why it's not a small term. Thank you.
So there is a next question from Priyanshi Tandon. Her question is, what would you suggest a student does to prepare early on for getting into the Indian Foreign Service?
Well, first of all, is get into the mindset yourself that I want to join the Indian Foreign Service. Now, I was fortunate. I discovered later that I was in the mindset from the 8th standard because I had written an essay that my aim in life is to join the Indian Foreign Service, which I discovered much later. But it was in my psyche that I have to become a Foreign Service officer, a diplomat. And I'd met a Swiss ambassador in Agra and Taj Mahal when I was a very young person. And it was a very impactful meeting. So thereafter, it also evolved more and more clearly in my mind that this is what is my goal in life. So that is the first thing. Second is to also have lot of seriousness of purpose. Start understanding what are the requirements in terms of general knowledge, in terms of subjects, in terms of diplomacy, in terms of history of international relations. So dig deeper and deeper, dive deeper into this because no depth is sufficient. You can keep on diving deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. So that is what you have to do. Also, definitely, I besides all the hard work that you'll do to prepare and join coaching classes, which is also required in India because of the numbers of people appearing. So coaching classes is good. Uh, Peer groups are good. In the IIT Delhi, whereas appearing for these exams, we had large number of my colleagues, peers, batchmates who were appearing. So we were able to interact on a daily basis. So that is also very good. That is very useful. Then the other aspect, of course, is spirituality and luck. So both of these definitely help because you can cross the threshold. Like when I went for my interview, I had a very difficult time for the IAS interview. The panel there, the chairman said that, oh, you have done your BTech from IIT Delhi with such good grades and merit list, and MTech from IIT Delhi with again very good grades and merit list and everything, A grade distinction, etc. Now, why do you want to join the foreign service? So that sort of question he posed, and it became a very difficult, challenging interview. And I was sweating in that air-conditioned room, and he asked me questions which I could not answer. But the others in the interview panel, there were others, many others who saw through all that, attack which happened on me, but they were probably more understanding, and they gave me very high marks, and that's how I got in. So that thing has to reflect in each and every part of your being. That yes, you are, confident, you are ready for it, you have been thinking about it, you have been working towards it. So that sort of message has to be there in your body language also, and you have to work very, very hard. And it's once you get in, that's not the end of your hard work. It's a beginning of another phase of hard work for the rest of your life. but it becomes very rewarding and very enriching, as I said earlier. Thank you.
So the next question is from Farid Irfan. His question is like, what is the career path for a Indian Foreign Service officer?
So
Where
the
do they start?
career path is as follows. When you join the Indian Foreign Service, you first do training for a few months with the other services all together in Missouri in a very beautiful academy. It's called the Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration. I've been there many few times, even after finishing my probation, tenure there, quite a few times, and it is in very very idyllic settings. It is a dream to be there. And incidentally, a lot of pairings happen, marriages and proposals there in that rarefied atmosphere of Missouri. But you have your training for about 3 4 months there. Then for the foreign service, we come back to the ministry, external affairs, New Delhi, South Block, earlier mainly South Block, now also Jawaharlal Nehru Bhavan. And then you have the longest training of any service, any job anywhere in the world. The foreign service training extends more than 2 years. All it used to be about 3 years during our time. So you are a probationer for that period. You are, studying hundreds of things, international relations. You're studying village. You're doing village work. You're doing state work. You're doing attachments with the military, navy, air force. You're understanding the whole country. You're doing Bharat Darshan. You're doing industrial attachment. So you have to have a very very thorough understanding of each and every aspect. You're doing foreign trade at the Institute of Foreign Trade, so you go to the best institutes, you do modules there, and then you have to take exams. Then you also study administration, establishment, accounting, finance, etc., etc. Because as an Indian foreign service diplomat, you're an all-rounder also. You have to specialize. So there's not jack of all trades, master of none. There's jack of all trades, master of all. So that is the Indian Foreign Service in short. So 3 years, about 2 years plus, less than 3 years. Then you also have to become proficient in a foreign language, and you pass an exam in that language, and then you are confirmed. Then your name appears very proudly in the Gazette of India. That you know, Farid is now Indian Foreign Service officer, and this is a Gazette notification. So then you are a proper confirmed diplomat. Thank you.
The next question is from Kirupakaran Guhan. Sir, after getting into IFS, is there any possibility of working with RA for defense related works?
Yes, of course. In the sense, raw is also a very interesting and challenging tenure. There are large number of people who are from the raw services itself, but an equal number of people from outside the raw. So there is the police service, which forms the bulk of that. Then there are a large number of IAS officers who join RAW for different periods, 5 years, 2 years, 10 years, depending on how long RAW wants to, tolerate you and how long you want to tolerate RAW, and foreign service officers. So foreign service officers do keep on getting this option of joining RAW, and then a lot of our colleagues have moved over to the other side because they find that very interesting and challenging work. So similarly, defense related works, of course, there are posts which foreign service officers have in the defense ministry, which are specifically for foreign service officers and their defense ministries international relations. Also, when I'm working in any other country, like in Tanzania, the defense attache was delayed by about 10 months or 11 months. So I was designated by the High Commissioner after approvals from Delhi, the Ministry of External Affairs, Ministry of Defense, Prime Minister's Office, etc., and others, as a defense attache for that period, which was unusual for a foreign service officer to be a defense attache. But since we didn't have a defense officer, so we were setting up a very big command and staff college. So all the defense work I was doing directly. But even as ambassador, if I have defense attaches working in my team from either the army or navy or air force, they are letting me know what is the state of defense relations with that country, how we can enlarge the footprint of defense relations between India and that country, etc., etc. So we work a lot in the defense related areas directly and otherwise also. we are able to impact our defense relations.
Sure, sir. One last question. What are the three important skills or habits to be a successful diplomat?
First, most importantly, have an open mind. Second, very importantly, be prepared for a lot of surprises, a lot of challenges. And third is, of course, most important, work, work hard, work hard, work hard. So once you have these skill sets of working happily, cheerfully on all these aspects, you are able to, have that good contribution, good experience, and a very rich life in terms of all the learnings of cultures, peoples across the globe.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for this amazing session as well as responding to all the questions of our participants. Now, I request Mr. Indrajit Chatterjee to formally uh, close the session or propose the vote of thanks. Over to Indrajit.
Thank you, Dr. Vignesh, NDLI Club and NDLI, and Sujata, CEO of NDLI, and of course, Dr. Ambassador Pradeep Kapur. He is very close friend of ours, and he's also our advisor in Wheels. And for the nice session organized by you, and Wheels is really grateful to you for promoting our objectives of Wheels. Ambassador Kapoor had covered most of them. So I don't have much to add except know that Wheels Global Foundation, as he has told, is founded by IIT alumni and in USA as well as in India as non-profit organization. In USA it is 501c3 and India it is Section 8 company. Now, we invite all the people to actually work as volunteers. It is fully voluntary work we are doing here, though there is board, etc., etc. But we are on the mission of giving back to the country as well as country of your own, as well as other countries in the world. And basically, on the six spokes of wheels, that is water, health, energy, education, livelihood, and sustainability. And I will tell, to sum up Ambassador Kapoor's huge work and activity, it is a massive work for me, but I took down a lot of notes on that one. But I'll tell in simple because time is very important. But I took up at 7:27 Vignesh, so 5 minutes you get, so 2 minutes overrun for you. And first thing, no, you should have the mindset. That's what he has told very clearly. Unless you have the mindset and want to serve the nation, actually, no, in a global world, India we are serving all of us, but in a global world, in a meaningful way, then this is the best way to represent India and Indian culture and our mission and government policies and other things. So basically, the dimensions of work I was listing down, it is fantastic, and political work, economic relation, trade and commerce, strategic relations, that is geostrategic relations, and military relations, and cyber, terrorism, security, climate change, you name anything for any country in the world, you have to do it to represent your country as well as the country you are serving in. That's very important because uh, a couple of months back we met the ambassador of India to USA in Washington DC, and Ambassador Kapoor, I, and our wheels, all our people were there, some of them, and it was really phenomenal that the way they represent the country and ask for the help. He mentioned diaspora. So that is the way actually country gets help actually through them. So that is the message I would like to give it to the students, that no, if you have that intention of doing something good for the country from a bigger platform outside India, then this is the best way of serving India. And selection process, etc., that he has told, that is again a different issue. But what last one I liked actually is that skill sets he mentioned actually, that open mind and the full of surprises and challenges, and also work hard, and work, etc. And really, only one thing I would like to add, Ambassador Kapur, with your permission, you have failed to mention one thing very, very important for me, that ambassador wives are the actually flag bearers of the India in the social life. And Dr. Kavita Kapur, who is Ambassador Kapur's wife, has done phenomenal work in Chile and all. No way less than Ambassador Kapur in building the relations with other diplomats and the country citizen, and those people become, no, that builds up the relation. So you also have to have that mindset that yes, you marry somebody who is in that line, otherwise you have a problem in adjusting that one. And they actually, I was very amazed. I met many ambassador, frankly speaking, but he is so humble, Ambassador Kapoor and Dr. Kavita Kapoor. She is also a professor in Maryland there, and phenomenal. I mean, absolutely. And we'll have this type of people. We have policy advocacy people like now IAS, IPS, and IFS, or ambassadors, and also engineers and some corporate people like us, who everybody is needed, and bankers and financiers, all are needed. So that's why I'm telling that it is one platform which gives you a, we are building smart village in a rural area, and Ambassador Kapoor is actually one of the main drivers for that one. And it's going great way, that your technology enabled philanthropy, we call it, that's our philosophy. We are still maintaining it. We want to target 20% of urban population in India by 2030, and that's a big target actually. So we welcome, and November conference will be a global conference. I'll end with that one. I think I'm just a minute longer
You
than what I was
you
allotted.
are on time, sir. You are on time. So thank you so
Sujata
much.
was very particular. Thank you so much, Dr. Kapoor and Dr. Vignesh. And
Thank
thanks to all the audience who had patience to listen to
Indeed.
this one on a Friday evening. As I always say, it's not the time really for spending time on the webinars, but it is a time usefully spent. I will tell that one. Thank you all from my side.
Thank you,
thank
Dr.
you.
Vignesh. Thank you, Dr. Sujata. And thank you, Dr. Indrajit Chatterjee.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank
Thank
you to
you.
Sujata.
all.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
the
Thank
session.
you to all the participants.
To all the participants. The certificate for participation, you can download it from the NDLI Club platform on Monday evening, and then you can use it for academic purposes. We once again thank our resource person, Ambassador Pradeep Kumar Kapoor, my colleague Ms. Sujata Rai, and Mr. Indrajit Chatterjee, who is the representative from Wheels Global Foundation. And we eagerly look forward to our next session, which is going to happen very shortly. We look forward to have you all for the next session. Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.